Hello, everyone. Welcome to a conversation with Chloe Grace Moretz. I'm so excited to be interviewing you, Chloe. My name's Loren King, and we're doing this, of course, for the Provincetown Film Festival, which unfortunately is canceled this year. However, we are here with these special programs, and before we even start, let me just say that the Provincetown Film Society is committed to bringing independent film and filmmakers to Provincetown, like Chloe, who was with us in 2018, and supporting diverse voices in the community. So they really need your support this year and going forward. So please help to continue this great effort to bring quality films to Provincetown by donating to ptownfilm.org. That's ptownfilm.org. Any amount you can give right now would be so appreciated in this challenging time. And it is a challenging time. Chloe, how are you doing in this crazy time?
I'm doing all right. It's definitely a time, we were chatting a little bit before this, but it's definitely a time, I think, of reflection for everyone around the world, and especially in America right now. It's kind of been the only summer I've had off since I was a kid. So it's kind of the first time I've been able to sit back and breathe and look at where I'm at and what I want to be doing, and be able to talk about things with people, and have really meaningful conversations. I think is kind of what's come out of this year so far for me.
So you're in LA right now, and have you been like quarantined or just staying inside a lot?
Yeah, I've been completely quarantined actually. My mother lives with me on my property. So she's over 60, so I want to be careful, obviously not exposing her to anything. So I've just stayed home. I've kind of gotten in a good rhythm. I've been trying to garden and figure things out. I've been baking a lot of bread. I have a sourdough starter that I created, and I've just been baking bread like a real baker. So that's been my number one thing. What about you?
Same here, a lot indoors, and actually I'm not disliking it because I love watching movies and reading.
Yeah.
Same thing, gardening, doing projects. So I can't say it's but the loss of work and the loss of going out to movies and theater, and that is a big loss. It's a little worrisome. I mean, does it concern you? Do you have any idea when things might get back to normal, or are you just going with the flow and waiting to see what happens? And
Yeah,
by saying getting back to normal, we don't even know what normal is anymore, right?
well, exactly. Kind of trying to figure out what that new normal looks like. I've had a couple projects in the pipeline to hopefully be filming this year, and those have completely been put on hold. And looking at the way that I feel, just even going to the grocery store to try and get groceries, you try and get in and out as quickly as possible to not be around people for that long amount of time, and to think about how a set is and how making movies are. It's a very intimate process, and it is a process where you want to be able to have conversations with everyone. You want to spend time with everyone. You want to be a part of your crew. At least I do. I love being a part of my crew. And it's really important for me to have that camaraderie, and to think of coming back to a set where potentially we don't have that camaraderie, where everyone's a bit separated from each other. I don't know what that's going to look like, because that's not, we're creatives, you know what I mean? We do well around people, being able to be creative as a group. And it's going to be a completely different energy. So I'm kind of worried, but also excited, because through change, can come a lot of really innovative ways of approaching situations. But it's definitely hit everyone hard, and it's been really, really hard to see the people that haven't been able to work, obviously, and don't have the ability to slow down. And it's a difficult time. There's no good way to kind of go about it. And I hope hope we get a vaccine and we're able to kind of go past it,
Right. What else can we hope for? Did things just, because you had as we were saying earlier, I mean, you as you said, you've been working nonstop since, I mean, I don't know how old you were. You were very young.
I was a little baby.
Did things just sort of stop right around March, or maybe in late February? Did you find that one day it was just boom?
Yeah, so I finished filming Tom and Jerry, which I did for Warner Brothers last summer, and I finished in September. And I came home and I was able to spend time with my family over the holidays. And then as of the first quarter, we were going to be kind of up and running and getting into projects. And immediately, once we just, had a couple meetings in February, and I was actually supposed to go work because I work with Louis Vuitton, and I was actually going to have to go and work with them at the top of March. And it ended up that we ended up not going because COVID started hitting, and it wasn't really talked about at that point in time. People weren't really getting into the situation, especially what we also know what ended up happening in France and how serious it got there. We, out of just kind of being cautious, we decided not to go. And it hit quick and fast. Yeah. We were out of town, and we came back into town March 14th. And it was just from that point forward, a whole new reality. Us flying home, most of the people that were on our flight, because we were just in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, for a family birthday. And on the flight home, everyone was off of cruise ships that had been docked. So cruise ships from all over the ocean that had been stopped in Puerto, and they had no way to really get home. So they were trying to figure out flights to get back to wherever they were from in America. And it was a very strange environment to be in, and nerve-wracking. Yeah. Thankfully, no one got sick
thankfully. Yeah. So that's when things just sort of, because that's how it was for theaters and festivals that all kind of shut down right in mid-March. It just was like dominoes.
Is that what it was for you?
Yeah, festivals that I was covering in Provincetown, everything kind of went down in mid-March, and then theaters just started closing. It was like once, I think South by Southwest and
yes,
were big early. Once those were canceled, everything sort of followed suit, and it just
crescendo.
Yeah.
So, what I was to say, one of my close friends, Catherine Gallagher, is was on Jagged Little Pill on Broadway, and they were right in the middle of it. And her castmate got COVID, and a lot of people she knew got it. And it was kind of just one of those scary things where it really went rampant through the theater community. And those are, it's so sad because those are shows that might not ever get the funding back to be able to get back on. You know what I mean? So some of those shows will be shut down forever, which is, it's heartbreaking.
It really is heartbreaking. Sad. I worry a lot for live theater. I mean, film may be able to recover. How are people going to gather on stage and speak to one another and sing and belt out?
Exactly. Exactly. The spit flies.
Yeah, the spit flies. In a good show, it does.
It does, exactly.
So it's very concerning, but that's interesting. And of course, it's a show with a lot of singing and emotion, and oh my gosh. Yeah, it's really it must be very tough around the creative folks that you're in contact with.
Yeah, very much so. But of course, obviously, we're in a different realm. So there's so many more people in America that are more affected than us, and we're so grateful to be able to be creatives. You know what I mean? And be able to work on hopefully some development right now, and to dig into things.
Well, let's talk about. Well, first I want to talk about when you came to Provincetown in 2018 with the Miseducation of Cameron Post. Fabulous movie, just terrific. You were so terrific in it, and it was very well received in town at the festival that year. I remember, and you were there and did a lot of introductions and a lot of Q&As. So, did you fall in love with Provincetown?
Oh, to say the least. It was one of the most amazing places I've ever been, honestly, in my life. It's the most inclusive town I've ever been to. It's a town that, I have 2 gay brothers in my family, so I've grown up as an ally my entire life. And it's never really been a question to me, but obviously as we travel, which is why we went to Puerto Vallarta in March, because again, that's like kind of another town that's very inclusive. Being able to go and travel and be in a place which is inclusive of literally all walks of life, anything, literally whatever you want to do. I've seen people walking down the street on leashes, you know what I mean? Like I've seen the whole 9 yards in P-Town. And that just speaks volumes for how incredible it is. Everyone is so supportive, and you feel incredibly safe. And to be able to have that environment at a film festival is unbelievable, because usually, you kind of go to different film festivals and you're almost nervous because you feel like, oh, I'm going to walk out of here with my head hung low if people don't receive it well. And Piton is a place that I think even if, they didn't love your movie, I still don't think you would feel shamed, you know what I mean, for being there in a certain way. We kind of feel from other places where you're like, oh, I gotta go, tuck my tail and run. But it's definitely a place where people are incredibly supportive, and it is idyllic. I mean, you walk around and it's absolutely stunning. The food is ridiculous. I probably ate my weight in ice cream and oysters and everything that I came across.
Fried clams.
Oh God, yes. There, and razor clams, lots of razor clams. Oh, I had a great time.
Yeah. And Cameron Post was really well received. Did you find it, did that help you sort of feel the effect that the movie was going to have as it got out there? Because it was a really important, I mean, I think it's just such a great film about being gay conversion, but in the bigger picture, the humanity of the characters, the friendships, it was really powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, it even just coming on to the project, I really felt that, I wanted to make the movie. And a lot of people in Hollywood were very against us making that movie. They thought that it wasn't going to be relevant. They thought that conversion therapy wasn't a modern issue, and that there were, kind of other ways to go about it that might be better than making this movie, which was made for less than $1 million, with Desiree Akhavan, who's a female director, and who wrote it with Cecilia, her writing partner. And it was a project that I fell in love with from the get-go when my brother, who I work with, Trevor, brought me the script. He loved it, obviously, and he brought it to me, and I fell in love with it. And immediately when I met Desi, our big thing was that we wanted to meet current survivors, if there were any, because we didn't even know if it was a current issue. And immediately we met 5 amazing people, and they were around my age, and they had just gotten out of conversion therapy within a year. Wow. To 2 years. So that kind of smacked me in the face to realize that there is a massive community, like a sub-community within the LGBTQ community, that no one really quite talks about. I know right now, thankfully, because the election's coming up in November, a lot of people are talking about conversion therapy, and it's really being discussed right now in America. But at this point in time, we were living in Obama era. And we were coming into it during the election between Hillary and Trump. And while we were filming the movie is when Trump was elected president. So it was this massive day on set where we were making, at that point, it was a shift, and it felt like we were making the most important movie that we could be making in America right now. Because it was, again, not just a story of allyship, but it showed all the different shapes and colors that walk this earth and that are put into conversion therapy, and for the different reasons that they're put into it. And it really was a jumping off point that once I finished making that film, and especially after seeing all the recognition it got from the community and how incredibly supported it was. I mean, people really, when you start talking about conversion therapy, more and more people come to you with stories of what they've been through, or what their sister or brother has been through, or their mother or father or neighbor. I mean, it's a very massive, very prevalent issue that people just don't really talk about until it's mentioned, and then it kind of just flows. But jumping, off of that, once the movie came out and going to P-Town and really being able to talk to people more and more about it and having wonderful conversations like this, I kept thinking, what can I do to expose this more? Where can I go to expose this more in America? And we came up with this wonderful idea, which we're actually selling right now to a major cable provider company, which is going to be shot and coming out hopefully, sometime next year, probably, depending on COVID. But it's called the Conversion Therapy States of America. And it's my brother and my mother and I. And it would be us on the ground, talking to survivors, following their stories, and exposing the realities of conversion therapy, and speaking to both sides and really hearing it, and kind of jumping in deep on those conversations. which is, it's really been, making Cameron Post really show me the ability I have at melding my activism with my art. And doing that in a way that doesn't feel like you're watching an educational special, that feels like you're also a part of the conversation. That's it's an activation. You want to get out. It makes you want to register to vote. And it really kind of lights a fire underneath you. And that's kind of, my jumping off point of going and becoming an adult in my career. And that's really helped shape me to the movies and projects that I'm becoming a part of now. And really kind of wearing that as a badge of honor and not backing off from the fact that I'm political. It's kind of leaning into it, but doing it with art.
Yeah. So this was a really important film for you. I mean, not only is it a great movie and you're great in it, but it sounds like that was a real turning point, that you're going to probably gravitate toward projects that that really have to give you a little bit more than the role or the paycheck.
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
So are you actually doing the interviews, Chloe, and talking with survivors that you find in the course of the journey of going around and finding them?
Yeah, so we've actually already found about 25 different people that we've talked to and been a part of, and I haven't been able to be in those conversations yet, but we've helped talk to them, and they're really interested. And actually, one of the big things that they talk about is Cameron Post, and how they really see that as a movie to be seen, for themselves to be seen, so people can see who they are and what it's like to be in that situation, and that they're just people, and that a lot of the time the people actually forcing it upon them don't quite know what they're doing either, and that it's really the title really stands for itself, and that it's the miseducation, and that a large amount of conversion therapy is just miseducated people misfiring in a way that they really think they're helping someone, and they truly believe they're helping someone, but it is just not the way to go about it. You know what I mean? So it it's been very interesting to kind of be a part of that.
That's amazing. And so when you first read the script, not knowing that it was going to have such a profound effect on you, the character and the friendships, I mean, I was so struck by the friendships that you had, Sasha Lane, and it was so real and honest, and yet and complicated. As an actor, those are the things that probably jumped out. You really had something to play.
Massively.
Yeah. So
keep going.
Aside from the bigger effect of it, just as a role and as working with a team, is that the kind of thing that excites you? Did you know right away that was going to be an exciting project for you, aside from all the positive outcome?
Very much so. It was the fact that it was such a character-driven piece, and it was an ability. We shot the film. I'll put it in the scope of this. We shot the film in upstate New York at this old German summer camp that was basically defunct now, and it was just a series of kind of summer camp houses, and what you saw in the film is where we shot and lived, and we all lived together, and we ate in the commissary, and we were all kind of one big team. And to be able to make a movie for less than $1 million that everyone said we shouldn't really make because it's not really needed, and it's just going to be an echo chamber because everyone thought that Hillary was going to win, obviously, and then it just kind of all shifted and the world shifted. Being able to be a part of a story where I'm able to build those relationships and show also the fact that, what we kind of gleaned from meeting the real survivors is that some of the stories, they're laughing telling us them because they're really weird. And at the end of the day, you're putting a large group of gay kids in rooms together for the first time with other gay kids, and you're expecting nothing to happen. And there is a lot of levity to it, that you really hear from the survivors you meet. And Desi has that edge of comedy in her own life, so she did an incredible job at implementing that. And Sasha and I and Forrest, we all kind of ran with that, and we. It was shot by Ashley Connor, and it was shot with one camera. It was all handheld. It was really most of the time just us in a tiny room, no air conditioning, burning hot, and we're just trying to be. And half of the movie is just us being. You know, that scene where we jump on the table and sing "What's Up" is a moment that grew into what it was as we did it.
Yeah.
And we actually filmed that the same day that Trump was elected. Oh. So that was a day where we were crying, literally in between takes. We would just cry because it felt like a loss. You know what I mean? It felt like a massive loss for America. And we got on this table and we just belted it out and sang, and were able to be silly and to shake it off and put it into the film. And it was definitely one of those incredible moments that company that I was surrounded by, and being able to do that together as a team is something that I will never forget. It definitely shaped me as a person, not just an actor.
Yeah, that's fantastic that you were able to have that experience. Do you continue to look for that with roles? Is that a big part of what makes you choose the films you choose? Because your selections of films are so interesting to me, and I'm sure to many other people who admire your work. I mean, Suspiria, where
wild. Immediately my reaction, I'm like, wow. That movie was crazy. Yeah.
What drew you to that, other than maybe you were a fan of the original?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Suspiria is something I think as a film nerd in general, it's hard not to want to be a part of, a Suspiria remake. You're like, oh yeah, like hell yeah, like why not? Like why wouldn't I do that? But of course, then you have Luca Guadagnino there, and he is, the most incredible man. I love him so deeply. He's awesome. And to be able to have him guiding you and have him putting you in this story, it was one of the freakiest films I've ever been a part of. I love how weird it is. And it was one of those projects that it's funny that you reference it with Cameron, because it was a very similar environment on set. It was kind of cultish. Like, to be honest, we all filmed in this old dilapidated hotel from the 50s at the top of this mountain in Italy. And it was one of those films where I would kind of be on set for 18, 19 hours. And, I was so tired most of the time that these things come out. And Luca is someone who, he's almost like a conductor with the way he kind of goes about it. He like builds this and puts all of his musicians in the right place, and they all play the right instrument, and then he just lets it go, and it just like builds and grows almost like classical music. And so you're doing these scenes, and the character that I was playing, Patrizia, she spoke German and English, and I had to, it was like 3 weeks before filming, and Luca called me and he was like, I want you to do the whole scene, which is this like 15-page scene, which is the main scene I'm in the movie outside of the very ending. He was like, I want it to be in all German. And I was like, okay, cool. Never spoken German, not something that I can do. And I just kind of dived in and had to learn the full scene in German. And then he was like, call me again. He goes, I want you to do it in English and German, but I want you to hop back and forth like you're demented. Like the mata is inside your head, is how he always said it. Like the mata is inside there. And I'm like, okay, got it. So then I had to learn it in English and German, and then had to make it to where if I jump to German and then jump back to English, it actually works. And it's a sentence that would make sense. And it was one of the most like mental gymnastic-y, almost classical music driven thing in a sense of like, it felt like reading music almost, trying to do the scene. And we would film it as oneers, and he would put the camera way up in a bookshelf over there. And I'd be like, what can you see? What am I acting to? And he's like, just do it. And I'm like, got it. Let me try. And we would just go, and it would be these 15, 20-minute takes. and you're playing someone who's possessed as you're doing it, and I'm hopping over furniture and my hair's soaking wet and I'm wearing this old like wool outfit, and it was just one of the craziest experiences I've ever been in. It was wild. But you definitely knew you were doing something special, and everyone who was a part of the project felt that. You know, I got to meet some really wonderful women, and I got very close to Mia Goth. And being able to work with Dakota and Tilda Swinton, of course, you know, I was able to have such a female energy around, and it's a rare environment to be in, to be surrounded by so much female energy and doing a project that is so witchy and feminine. That, you know what I mean? Like kind of raw and wild, and that femininity and just psychosis of it almost. It was insane. And art started to beget life a little bit, and you know, the first AD ended up falling in one of the holes where Mia broke her leg. He fell in the hole and broke his leg in the same way. So really weird things started happening on set like that. People were waking up at odd hours. They were hearing things in their sleep. So there were some weird energies on set. God knows what we were calling upon during that story. But
did you go down and check out the basement?
No, never. It was the scariest place I've ever been. So we were filming like in the middle of the winter. It was snowing in Italy, and we're like on the Italian-German cusp. Like we're, you know, right on the edge. So you're pretty much in Germany. It's that cold. It's that freezing up there. And there was hardly any heating. We were in these old dressing rooms, and everyone was just drinking way too much coffee and not sleeping and freezing cold. And so the last thing we were gonna do, when we're all like also half dressed because everyone's in very little dance outfits, we're all freezing cold, the last thing we're doing is wandering off set. It's like the last thing we're gonna do.
Oh, are you going to work with Luca Guadagnino again?
I mean, I've always said to Luca, I'm like, if you need me to be a grip on your set, I will be there. I will do your lighting. He is someone that I would do anything for. He's the most incredible person, and is funny and ridiculous and brilliant. And we've had a couple different projects that we've talked about doing together. And we haven't found the perfect one yet. But I know that when we do it again, it's gonna be something really special. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. That sounds amazing. And the film was amazing. That kind of energy is there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You watch it and you're like, whoa.
It's definitely a whoa. But you talked about that female energy that you found on that set with all that whole ensemble of women. But then I'm thinking back to when you did Clouds of Sils Maria. I mean, you know, you're excited when you see one great women's role a lot of the time, or two. Wow, that's a real bonus. There were like 3 powerhouse female performances in that. What drew you to that? Because that was a few years ago now. How did that come about?
Olivier reached out, and he wanted us to check on this project. And I remember I got it when I was actually in Georgia visiting my extended family. We're from Georgia, and I was staying in this tiny bed in my aunt's house with my mom, and we got the script through, and the whole script was actually written like a play. So he wrote it in play format, which is really interesting because, you know, the play is Maloya Snake, and so there was just an interesting way to even write it. You know, kind of going into it, you start reading it and you're like, oh, this is something special. You know, so I remember devouring that, and it was like 138 pages or something like that. It was incredible. But I think I was, at the point in time, I think I was about 16. I think I was about 16 years old. And it was this character that, you know, you kind of don't get a lot of chances to play someone like that at many ages, especially at 16, 17. It was something that was really special and fun. And being able to play her like drunken mess in the paparazzi videos, throwing her like Chanel bag at the paparazzi and screaming out of a Hummer, and being like totally drunk at a press conference. And then when you meet her, she's like, I'll have the chamomile, to Juliette Binoche. Like that type character is something that you don't really have the chance to play a lot, and especially through the eyes of Olivia Assayas and with Juliette Binoche and Kristen Stewart. It's one of those projects that again is kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I felt really incredibly lucky to be able to get the chance to be reached out to from Olivier. I mean, that's an honor in of itself. And then going to Germany to film it actually is where we filmed it. We filmed it in Berlin, and then we filmed it out in Sils Maria, which was a really incredible experience, being out there, being in the clouds, and kind of being in the atmosphere that the story is supposed to be placed in. Again, it's kind of like what Luca did with Suspiria in really creating the environment, and creating that tension that grows between people in these specific environments. And I was kind of in and out very quickly over a course of a few weeks, but it was definitely a character and an ability to work with Juliette, which shaped me massively. Juliette is someone that I still look up to this day, and she was someone who held no qualms about her. I mean, she walked in and was the coolest person and was just so calm, and there was nothing about her that is, there's nothing about her that makes you feel intimidated that she's putting on, you know what I mean? Except for the fact that she's an incredible actor and you're like, oh, Julia Binoche. But she is just the most calm, incredible person. And I felt really lucky to work opposite her and also play an absolutely ridiculous Hollywood LA girl. That was really fun. I could do all the things I haven't done. So it was fun.
Yet you talked about some resistance to Cameron Post among the Hollywood insiders or whatever, people who are focused on hits or how this film is going to be received. It would seem like this one too. Was there anyone that said to you, why do you want to make this weird art film with, a French actress? And, I mean, Kristen was big at the time, but not quite as big as she is now. I mean, was there that sort of attitude? Like, why do you want to do this kind of film?
Definitely. I mean, that was, a time period where, and I might be wrong about this, but I think it was the same year that I shot in this year, I'm pretty sure I shot If I Stay, The Equalizer, Sils Maria, and I did a cameo, I think, in the same year for the Muppets movie. Okay. I think I literally did all those things in one year. I think if I'm correct, I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was that same year. But it was one of those projects that, you're obviously, you're not going to make any money on it. It's not one of those projects that you're going in being like, so your agency's not incredibly happy about it because you're not gunning for that. And I was definitely always wanting to do the interesting roles and the interesting projects. And it was definitely something that was unconventional to choose. And it was unconventional for Olivier to choose a young girl to do it. Like, I think it really speaks volumes to him as a creator to look at, a 17-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl, and be like, she's got the chops to do this. So having that opportunity was enough for me to run with it. You know what I mean? Like, I jumped at the idea. I think I was filming in Toronto or something like that when I met with Olivier. I want to say I was filming Kick-Ass 2 in Toronto when I met with Olivier, and we just really hit it off. And from that point forward, I went to go film The Equalizer and If I Stay, and then I went to go do Sils Maria. So it was kind of the incredibly different movies, all within the same year. And kind of going against the grain with what a lot of people expected me to really be doing, especially after, making a movie like Kick-Ass when I was younger. A lot of people expected me to kind of do similar projects going forward, but I never really wanted to be one person, you know? I really wanted to push myself and be characters that are so different than who I am, and to question myself and to scare myself, and to feel like, are you good enough to do this? Are you going to be able to do this? Are you got the chops to really be up to do this? And kind of that fear and that nervousness, that good nerve you get going into it, was what I was craving, and obviously still am. But
Yeah.
especially when I was in my teens, it definitely, I was really wanting to just go every direction and really like feel it out.
Right. Were you frustrated by the roles you were being offered, the more mainstream roles you were being offered?
Sometimes, definitely. I have always acted against type, being kind of, I don't know. I can look really sweet a lot of the time, and a lot of people kind of see me like that, or people see me as really strong and just like, a very, very, very strong, action kind of girl, which is like, yeah, that's definitely a part of me, and it's definitely a part of who I am. But I don't want to be either. I think the problem with a lot of female characters is that they are written as one thing, that a woman can only be one way, that she can't be all the intricacies that you write into a male's part a lot of the time. It's something that has always been frustrating, I think, as a woman in general, especially a teenager, because a lot of the time they just want you to fall in love and fall out of love and then fall in love again and then fall out of love again. And I wanted to do a couple projects like that, of course, and I was able to do a couple projects like that. But even within those projects, the reason I chose, a movie like If I Stay, was because R.J. Cutler, the director, and our producing team, they didn't want it to be your typical romance film. They wanted it to be a character that, isn't just making a decision based on who she's falling in love with. She's, kind of going up against very real ideals of mortality, and what that looks like and what that feels like. And she isn't all the time great. You know what I mean? She isn't just this steadfast, always really positive, perfect person. She really doubts herself, and she questions herself, and she doesn't make the right decisions sometimes, and she tries to figure out who she is. And it kind of shows that, women can be complicated too, and women don't have to be, just the bitchy character, or just the girlfriend, or just the damsel, or just the fighter. We can be everything at once, and have those intricacies and really try and show them. So really what I've really tried to strive for, since I was young, and kind of growing up to being a woman, has been to find filmmakers that share that like and sensibility. You know what I mean? That share the want and need to show both male and female characters in a way that flip the script, that put it on its head, and that also don't, have to speak all the time. Roles that kind of sit back, and more is given in the subtext than is given in the sentences. You know what I mean? The characters you really get to soak into, and to get to feel their skin as an audience member, as you're watching them. So it's definitely been what I've kind of tried to strive for as an actor.
Yeah. So that a director's vision, a communal, more of an ensemble, sounds like that's what you look for, a real creative experience, rather than a great part that's really going to showcase you.
Exactly. Not just kind of a one-woman show, which, there are projects like that are specifically about one person going through one thing. But, even with my bigger, more studio projects that I've chosen to do, like with choosing Tom and Jerry last summer, what really struck me with it was Tim's story. I mean, he's this incredible director, and he went into it wanting each character to be interesting and to really have a reason. And you're working in a movie where you're acting opposite two imaginary beings that are being hand drawn. So I'm acting opposite air. But the idea of being able to do that, and the way that Tim and I looked at it, was a chance to be able to do something where you don't really have the ramifications of what has to be said and done. There was a ton of improv involved, and there was kind of this freedom of whatever I did and said, the animators could animate. So I was acting opposite nothing. So what I improv that they were miming, they could create. So it was this kind of wild scope of freedom, and every character that I acted opposite, was brilliant in their own way.
Yeah.
So it really goes for, the auteur projects and also the bigger budget, big studio films.
Yeah.
It's finding the right filmmakers.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Really.
sounds so creative. Because you've done other animated, and I think you're doing Addams Family again. Did you say earlier?
Yeah. So Addams Family is completely animated. So Tom and Jerry is like live action, almost Roger Rabbit, and animation. And then Addams Family is fully animated.
Yeah.
And I'm doing Addams Family 2 coming up here. Gonna record it this summer.
Yeah.
Which is really
Wednesday was awesome, and she was my favorite in that.
Thank you.
She was so cool. I loved Wednesday.
She's so cool. Yeah. I felt like she was cool. Like I was acting it and I was like, oh, Wednesday is like someone that I would totally look up to if I was watching this movie. And I definitely wanted her to, I was very shaped by the Addams Family movies and Christina Ricci, but I really wanted to not steal her version of Wednesday because it was so iconic and so specific. Right. I wanted to try and find a Wednesday that made sense to me. We kind of found this sociopathic, serial killer light character for children. So that was a really fun time playing around with those amazing directors. And going to the second film, the story on it is really brilliant. And Wednesday gets to have a little bit even bigger of a character than the last movie, which is really exciting. And of course, incredible cast. You know what I mean?
It must be great to know that you have a great voice. And I mean, actors with great voices, not just singing, obviously, but great speaking voices. And to be able to utilize that is a whole other area of creativity that I'm sure excites you.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, very, very much so. I'd love to have the opportunity to kind of continue to do that and play with characters vocally and really build something where you get to remove Chloe Grace Moretz from the picture. You know what I mean? And you really get to become anyone, which is what you struggle against as an actor on screen, because you want to try and change your, visibility so people don't see you, they see the person. But with animation, you're able to just run with it, and it's so much fun.
That's great. I'm glad you're having fun with that. Now, there's one other project you had mentioned earlier, or Trevor had mentioned, about Kathleen Kennedy. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's an incredible project about Kathleen Kennedy, Kit Kennedy, and it's a story that we came across when we were watching a special about her. And she's a Kennedy that a lot of people don't talk about. Mm-hmm. And we found a really interesting in on her life. She had a very long life, a very kind of interesting life where she was actually disowned by her mother and her father because of the man that she chose, which is against their faith. Mm-hmm. And she moved to England and lived in England. And we found kind of this time period in her life during the bombings in London where she was a Red Cross nurse. Wow. And so we found a really interesting in on the character with showing her life in a very short span of time, where you don't really know that she's a Kennedy, and you kind of only hear it. You kind of hear it from what is said to her, but you enter into this person who's living this night in their life. And we watch her life unfold, and she makes a very large decision by the end of it. But you don't really realize it until much deeper in the film that she's a Kennedy, which I love stories like that. And so being able to actually produce that and to, we were able to acquire the rights to a wonderful book. And we got, with another production company who ended up funding it. And we have the story written now. So we're just looking for directors to.
But you'll be playing her?
Yeah, I'll be playing her.
And playing her. Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah, so many of the women were just as or more fascinating than the men, but
we
don't know as much about them, obviously.
Exactly, we don't know that much about them, but there are there's a lot of life in that family that isn't really discussed.
Yeah.
You know,
she was killed in a plane crash, right? Yeah.
she was killed in a plane crash.
Yeah.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
was a wild life she led. But it's nice, I think, to find, because there's so many Kennedy stories out there.
Yeah.
I really wanted to try and make it to where it is a Kennedy story, but it's also not, because she is someone who went against, you know, what was forced upon her in a lot of ways. And she was one of the only ones to be like, why is this what we're following? Why is this what we have to kind of sew into? Yeah.
Wow. It sounds like there's definitely a pattern with some of the choices you're making, Chloe, with these women characters. So like when you say that this is something that's forced on me and I'm just gonna reject
Not
that.
gonna do it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that also, I just made a film called Shadow in the Cloud with Roseanne Liang directing it, and it's one of the coolest stories I've ever been a part of. And we actually got to see the film recently. We were able to screen it here at the house, which is really wonderful. And it's one of those stories, again, where it's a woman in World War II, and she boards B-52, and she is put into the turret gunner position. And she has a package that she has to get to a safe location. And throughout the course of the film, you start to realize that there might be something supernatural on the plane that is trying to deter them and take them down, as well as you really question whether or not she could potentially be an enemy agent and really who she is. But the entirety of the movie takes place on my face in this tiny little ball turret.
Whoa.
And that is a 90-minute film where it's just me, and the other voices you hear are in my comms. And it is probably one of the hardest films I've ever filmed.
Wow.
But talk about an incredibly complicated story, a female story. And Roseanne Liang did a lot of work on the script, and she really made it her own, and we made it our own together. And it is a real female tour de force, you know, wild character that I was able to kind of jump into. And she's also one of those characters that you kind of look at and you go, you know, maybe she's not the best person. And I think that's a good thing to be able to show that for female characters, is that you don't always have to be the right kind of heroine. You know?
Yeah.
You can be different too.
Yeah. When can we see that? Was that another next year? I mean,
that should be next year. Yeah. We're out to sell it right now, so it should be next year.
All right. We hope. Geez, I think we have to wrap up soon. I
know that flew by.
Wow. I have enjoyed every second of it. You're amazing, and I'm so excited about these films you've mentioned coming out. And I wish we were doing this live in Provincetown, but
no, me too. I wish we could be back in Provincetown right now.
Yeah, we could go get some fried clams.
Seriously.
If you like this conversation, this is the exact kind of conversation the Provincetown Film Festival has been putting on for over 20 years now. And if you like what they're doing, guests like Chloe Grace Moretz, please donate to continue to bring independent film and filmmakers to Provincetown, support diverse voices in the community, help continue to thrive in Provincetown by donating to ptownfilm.org. Any amount you can give is appreciated during this challenging time. ptownfilm.org. Chloe Grace Moretz, you are amazing and so articulate about your work. And
thank you.
Really, it was fun talking with you, and I hope people enjoyed the conversation.
Likewise, I had a great time.
Good. I'm glad you did. And hopefully we'll see you in Provincetown again with another of your films.
Hope. I would love to. Definitely.
Let's hope we're all back to seeing films the way they should be seen and having conversations about them in person soon. Okay. Well, you stay safe, and thank you again. It was a real pleasure. So
thank you. And thank you to everyone out there who is supporting the Black Lives Matter movement. Stay strong, stay protesting, and don't sit quiet. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chloe. Bye. Bye.